Supreme Court justice who was running again to the bench, Justice Kelly, and the regressive Janet Prostasewicz won. Now, here's the thing. The Supreme Court is a non-partisan position in Wisconsin. Historically, judges usually won't campaign on hot-button political issues because they need to be neutral jurists, not neutral, but jurists who are objective, who do not advocate their personal preferences in legal cases that will come before them, but they follow the law based on their oath to adhere to the rule of law. Well, Janet Prostasewicz did the exact opposite.
That can really change the dynamic there when we look at that container.
Think you can find the
of Hodier cards to an old friend who has dementia.
And for sponsoring our KEOM programming, Resource One Credit Union.
Uno Beto Najera, mañana entre 6 y 11 de la mañana también va a tener premios para el día Plus a las 6.
Solid Bible teaching, God's truth, is a click away anytime you need it. KCBI's All Teaching channel is at kcbi.org or within the app. You'll hear rich Bible teaching from teachers like Robert Jeffress, Tony Evans, Chuck Swindoll, David Jeremiah.
You don't have to come to church to pray. You don't have to be on your knees to pray. Prayer is fellowship with your God.
Go deeper in your faith now at kcbi.org or on the app. KCBI's All Teaching channel.
Coming April 29th in partnership with Pulse, a free concert event to fill the Gaylord family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. FTS. This free student-led event seeks to proclaim Jesus and continue the revival that is spreading across college campuses everywhere. FTS will feature Carrie Job and Chandler Moore from Maverick City in concert and a gospel message. All ages are welcome. FTS, April 29th. Gates open at 5 p.m. at the Gaylord family, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Tickets are required. Free tickets available at FTS23.com.
Pulse is a ministry impact partner with 90.9 KCBI.
I'm Amanda with Expo Home Improvement, and since 2006, we have been replacing DFW's worn-out windows. But did you know that we also specialize in bathroom remodels? Expo Home Improvement offers bath and shower solutions for those looking for modern upgrades, freestanding tubs, or safety features for those aging in place. If evaluating your bathroom this spring, Expo Home Improvement is here to help. More information available at expohomeimprovement.com. Expo Home Improvement is a business impact partner with listener-supported 90.9 KCBI.
In 2016, we found out that our youngest son, Asher, had cancer. I will just never forget crying in the lobby of the hospital on the phone with the Samaritan Ministries person on the other end who ended the call saying, let's just pray about this.
When it does hit you and you really wonder what's going to happen, it worked.
Samaritan Ministries is a community of Christians paying for one another's medical bills. For more information, call 877-755-2165. That's 877-755-2165.
Samaritan Ministries is a non-profit business impact partner with listener-supported 90.9 KCBI.
Carpet Outlets of Texas is a DFW flooring company that sells and professionally installs carpet, wood, and waterproof floors. Carpet Outlets of Texas has been serving the DFW Metroplex since 1975. Showrooms are located in Garland near the Firewheel Mall and in Red Oak. Their website is carpetoutlets.net and their phone number is 972-279-4800. Carpet Outlets of Texas is a business impact partner with 90.9 KCBI.
KCBI's 5 o'clock refresh.
As promised. I told you about the spy balloon situation. I want you to listen to and watch this clip. It's clip 2. Go.
The Chinese spy balloon that traveled across the country for several days was able to gather intelligence passing over sensitive American military sites before it was shot down in February on President Biden's order. That's according to 2 current and 1 former senior official. Among the new findings, China steered the balloon in a figure-8 pattern at times and collected electronic signals detected from U.S. bases and weapon systems. The balloon had a remote self-destruct mechanism. Sources say it's unclear if that failed or China did not use it. The White House today.
It had a propeller, it had a rudder, it had the ability to speed up, slow down, turn. It had maneuverability.
Sources also told NBC News the balloon was able to send back intelligence to Beijing in real time.
As of right now, we're still doing an assessment of what exactly the intel was that China was able to gather.
China claims it was a commercial weather balloon.
Part of it is a test to see whether they can penetrate our airspace. Part of it is, frankly, collecting intelligence in real time.
China, why is a weather balloon? The only reason why they would try that foolishness is because they know they have somebody in the White House who's not going to do anything about it. I'm just telling you. They said, oh, it's harmless. It's nothing. Nothing is going on with the balloon. Come to find out, they operate that thing like a remote control car. They're doing donuts across Montana. They're doing donuts by the Alford Air Force Base, where you have intercontinental ballistic missiles. You know, they're collecting electronic signals. And then our officials come out, yeah, we wanted to let it float until it got over the Atlantic Ocean so that we can destroy it and it won't hurt anybody. Some people don't. Do you realize that thing floated from the Pacific Northwest area, from the western portion of our nation, all the way across the internal continental U.S. out to the Atlantic Ocean over South Carolina? It just so happened that the trajectory of the balloon just so happened to coincide with all of these vital military sites. You know, sites like the Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, which is one of 3 bases that maintains and operates Minuteman III ICBMs. The Alford Air Force Base in Nebraska, the headquarters of U.S. Strategic Command. Bobby and I talked about that off air, which oversees America's nuclear forces. Y'all understand what I'm saying? It oversees America's nuclear forces. Joint Base Charleston in South Carolina, which hosts 2 nuclear submarines. But it's just a coincidence that the balloon just happened to have that trajectory, right? It just floated. Like that. It just floated across. Obviously, how did that go? Poof. Man, listen. I told you I might have been born that night, but it wasn't last night. It wasn't last night. We need an outpouring of the Spirit of God in our nation. Hearts and minds to be transformed. And I believe all of this indictment stuff and all of that is to divert our attention away from all of those things so they can further deepen the structural apparatus to allow manipulation to continue. With that, we'll go to the phone lines. We'll start in Texas, where Mark is on the line. Mark, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
I got several little things. I thank you for what you do. You're amazing, and I love everything you work for and do. The next thing is, can't former President Trump file something to keep them from harassing and badgering and messing with him, because they're wasting so much money, and I don't care about the New York money, but that is such harassment that they don't need to be doing that. Can't he do something about that?
Yes, he can, Mark. One of the first things that I said, if I were representing him, I might have said I might need to make a trip somewhere. I won't say who. A little pro bono activities. But I would file a motion to dismiss immediately, as well as a motion to reschedule to expedite hearings. Because you can do that, considering the extraordinary circumstances that, I'm running for president. That we kind of need to get this on a docket before December. File that immediately and compel Alvin Bragg and these other people to identify with greater specificity what they're alleging. Otherwise, the whole thing needs to be tossed out. There's more that can be done, but that's where I would start, especially with these ridiculous New York charges. We'll go next to Texas, where Eric is on the line. Eric, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Abe. I just wanted to ask you something in particular about your theory about Donald Trump. Wouldn't it make more sense that the Democrats want to keep him inside jail or something like that and hold him over until, say, the primaries are done and something like that when it's too late for Trump to run for president?
Eric, thank you for your call and your comments. Well, they can't hold him in jail. They don't have the lawful authority to do that. There's nothing, as I explained, I don't know if you heard the show yesterday, but that the Class E first-degree felony in New York is a non-violent felony in New York that has no jail time as a consequence. So if you can't put him in jail, even if he's convicted for this crime, whatever is alleged in the indictment, you can't put him in jail pending trial for it. So they don't have the wherewithal with these charges in particular at this juncture to put the former president in jail. And again, what they want is for him to consume the time and the attention of the media, and again, based on my theory, and to put him in a position that drowns out competition in the Republican primary, because I think they believe they would have a more effective theft campaign in 2024 if Trump is at the top of the ticket. I will remind you, in the midterm elections, that the Democrat National Committee specifically gave millions of dollars in support for candidates specifically that were endorsed by President Trump in the primary, because they thought they would be easier to beat in the general election. So that's something in many states across the country that helped to damper the much bantied about red wave that ended up not being so much of a wave. And I would say that the opportunity for a red wave is far greater in 2024 than it was in 2022. Back to the phone lines. We'll go next to Tennessee, where Jesse is on the line. Jesse, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Oh, God bless you, and thank you for what you do and staying up late last night. I just a comment here. I work at the Postal Service, and I believe that they are totally cheating like crazy, and they got away with it one time. They won't stop, and the software they use is sketchy as well. But as far as Biden's blunders and that, I think, yes, his mind is going. His speech obviously shows that. But I think leaving millions of dollars of military equipment overseas of ours was done beholden to the communist regime. I think he's in their pocket, or they got him, and he, I don't think it was done as a mistake. And I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Jesse, for your call and your comments. And now that was in Afghanistan. It wasn't millions, it was billions of dollars. With a B, billions of dollars of equipment. And it can't be construed as an accident, because he's not like, oh, you know what, tomorrow let's go and leave, everybody. We're going to go. We're going to go get on the boat. We're going to leave. No, he intended to say, we're going to leave in these dates. And, well, American allies, American supporters, interpreters, other things, forget all of them. We're out of here. So there's no way you can say that he did that accidentally. There are people who would say, well, you might have a reasonable disagreement with the president's foreign policy initiative in that endeavor. But there's no doubt that he did so. Once again, making us a bit more vulnerable, because now you have terrorists who are now armed with American military equipment. Who knows if they'll be able to use it? But we certainly can't use it if they have our $80 billion of equipment.
The views and opinions.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
Or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio. How beautiful is the laugh of a baby. At conception, the heartbeat begins in the womb, and the unborn baby is able to respond to sounds and touch. That's why it's our duty and privilege to fight for the sanctity of life. Thank you for joining that fight from AFA. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton. Indiana's governor signed a bill banning all gender manipulation procedures for minors today. The law will go into effect July 1st, and trans youth currently taking medication to transition would have until the end of the year to stop doing so. Some medical providers claim most of the procedures banned in the bill are reversible and safe for minors. The Wisconsin Supreme Court election does not bode well for the state's pro-life cause. Here's AFN's Charlie Butts.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court was split 3-3.
But Tuesday, extremely liberal Janet Protasewicz defeated conservative Dan Kelly and will serve a 10-year term starting in August. Kelly, in speaking with Spectrum News, says it's not a question of sour grapes after losing the election.
My concern is the damage done to a liar, judicial ethics. She's demeaned the judiciary with her behavior, and this is the future that we have to look forward to in Wisconsin.
Gracie Skogman of Wisconsin Right to Life tells AFN one of the cases the new court will rule on is a lawsuit against the state's 1849 law against abortion.
That's currently in our state court system, and we do expect that the Supreme Court will make a determination on that law. And with the addition of Justice Protasewicz, we fear that the leading of the court would be in opposition to that pro-life law.
And that will pave the way to kill thousands of preborn babies. The Protasewicz campaign was fueled by money from out-of-state abortion groups such as Planned Parenthood, and that allowed her to dominate advertising. I'm Charlie Buttons.
The White House said it's concerned about the threat posed by artificial intelligence, but as Fox Business Network's Edward Lawrence reports, there is no timetable set yet on what to do about it.
A Center for AI Safety report says survival could push artificial intelligence to take a Darwin approach to growth and possibly turn on its creators. President Joe Biden talked artificial intelligence with his Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. He gave no timetable for guardrails or if there should be a pause on more powerful AI technology. Here's the exchange I had with the White House press secretary about that.
I don't have a time frame to share with you. As I mentioned, there's a comprehensive process.
Experts warn the president to get in front of this emerging technology before the problems exceed the benefits. Edward Lawrence, Fox News.
A national defense analyst said new information makes it clear the Biden administration was incoherent in its handling of the Chinese spy balloon crisis earlier this year. AFN's Chad Groening has the story.
U.S. officials now confirm the Chinese spy balloon that flew across the entire country was able to gather intelligence from several sensitive American military sites, despite the Biden administration's attempts to prevent it from doing so. But the administration is reiterating what it said in February, that any intelligence collected had limited additive value for China, and said it could not confirm that the balloon had transmitted any information back to China in real time. Grant Newsham is a retired Marine colonel who now serves as a senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. During an appearance on Washington Watch on American Family Radio, he said he is not surprised at the new information.
The spy balloon was really just one part of a much larger, broader Chinese espionage effort against the United States. But what did stand out, however, was, I'm afraid, and I don't take any pleasure in saying it, was the administration's practically incoherent response to it. Their explanations for what was happening were contradictory. You'll note that they said, well, the Chinese didn't really get much from all of this, that they wouldn't get from satellites, and now you see this report like this.
And Newsham says the administration probably wouldn't have responded at all if some citizen in Montana hadn't taken a picture of the spy balloon.
The administration had a meeting coming up between Secretary Blinken and the Chinese in Beijing, and they wanted that to go through.
Newsham says we're in a war whether we recognize it or not.
There's been a 30-year war going on against us, being waged by the Chinese. They call it that. We just choose not to. We pretend it isn't a war, but to the Chinese it is.
I'm Chad Groening.
For American Family News, I'm Robert Thornton.
Are you a baptized believer in Jesus Christ? And does it matter if you're baptized? Here's Pastor Jeff Shreve.
Now, when it comes to baptism, lots of confusion. Tons of confusion because there are churches that do things differently. So we want to look today at the baptism of Jesus. And we want to, as we look at it, answer this question: is baptism really that important? You know, because some people say it doesn't matter at all. So what's the big deal about baptism?
From His Heart with Pastor Jeff Shreve. And thank you for joining us today for the broadcast. Here's the question for us today. How are we to be identified as people who believe and trust in Christ? Well, one way is to take the step of obedience and follow Christ in baptism. In today's truth-filled message called The Identification Test, Pastor Jeff dives deeply into the importance of baptism for the new believer. It is a big deal, and there are different opinions about what it means. This is the second message in the 11-message series, Footsteps, what it really means to follow Jesus. And you can find out more about this series when you go to promiseheart.org, and also listen to messages that you may have missed, and anytime you can download a free MP3 of any broadcast, as well as the sermon outlines. Right now, open your Bible to the 3rd chapter of the book of Matthew, as we begin a revealing and perhaps convicting message for you and for all believers. Here's Pastor Jeff with the Identification Test.
I heard about a woman, and she was driving her sports car, and she was a blonde, and she was speeding, and she gets pulled over by a female police officer who was also a blonde. The officer comes to the door, and she says, "I need to see your license." And the blonde in the car is going through her purse, rifling through her purse, looking everywhere, looking in the glove compartment, and she doesn't find anything. She says to the policewoman, I can't find it. I must have left it at home. And the police officer says, "Well, I need to see some kind of identification." And so the woman looks through her purse, rifles through her purse. Finally, she finds a mirror. And she says, "Well, I have this picture of me." And the officer says, "Well, let me see it." And so she hands her the mirror, and the officer looks, hands it back, and says, "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were a police officer." We're in a series called Footsteps, what it really means to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. And today we want to look at the very first thing Jesus did when he started his ministry, and that is baptism. That was the first thing that Jesus did. You know, we don't know a lot about Jesus. We have the one recording when he was 12, when he went up to the temple, and then they were going back home to Nazareth, and Jesus wasn't with them, the family, and they wondered what is going on, and they came back, and he's at the temple. That's the only thing that we have recorded about Jesus, about his growing up years. And then nothing is said again until now, when he is baptized, and his baptism begins his ministry. Now, if we're going to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, we have to learn what he did, what he said, where he went, so we can learn and grow and do likewise and follow after him and truly be Christ followers. Now, when it comes to baptism, lots of confusion. Tons of confusion, because there are churches that do things differently. You know, some say, well, baptism, that's what you do when you're an infant. I was baptized when I was 2 weeks old because I grew up Catholic, and that's what you did in the Catholic Church. And some say, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And some say, no, you don't baptize babies, you baptize people when they're old enough to understand. And then some say, well, baptism, you're supposed to use a pool of water. And others say, no, just you don't need a tank full, just a spoonful. A little dab will do you. And they have that kind of idea. Some even say, in some churches say, if you're not baptized, you're not a Christian. You can't go to heaven unless you're baptized.